You may see a seed and say it is small, insignificant, even powerless on its own, but the truth is that seed holds within it the fullness of a harvest not yet seen. It is not just a potential, it is a promise. When you take that millionaire seed and hold it in your hand, what you truly possess is not the seed, but the future it contains. That is where the teaching begins. To understand planting is to understand the whole mystery of life. A seed does not concern itself with how it will grow. It does not hesitate or question. It does not wait for approval or weather reports. It responds to the moment it is planted. It surrenders completely to the environment into which it is placed. And yet, within that surrender, it holds a defiant certainty. It knows what it is. It does not look like the plant it will become. It is covered in dust and husk, dry and lifeless to the eye. But do not be deceived. The moment you plant it in May's fertile soil, under the warmth of a committed sun, the unseen activity begins. And it is this unseen activity that matters most. When you plant a millionaire seed, you must do it with full understanding that you are not just engaging in agriculture, you are engaging in a spiritual act. You are agreeing with the laws that govern growth. You are entering a covenant with time, with nature, and most importantly, with yourself. The soil is your canvas, and the seed your belief. What you are willing to assume as true in the moment of planting is what you will reap in due season. The planting process does not begin with digging a hole, it begins with intention. Before your hand touches the soil, your mind must touch the harvest. You must already see the lush green stems, already feel the satisfaction of tending to abundance. You must plant as one who knows, not one who wishes, for the seed responds not only to warmth and water, but to your expectation. That expectation becomes its command. The mind is the true field in which all seeds grow. And like the soil, the mind must be prepared. You do not scatter seeds on rocky, unbroken ground. You till it. You make it soft. You remove what will choke the roots. In the same way, you must prepare your inner ground. Clear out the beliefs that say, maybe it won't grow, or the conditions are not perfect. Understand, the condition was made perfect the moment you believed in the seed. There is no waiting for signs. The outer world does not tell you when to plant the seed of your desire or your garden. The sign is the inner pull, that knowing, that inner voice that whispers, now. And when that voice speaks, you act. You do not delay. You do not hesitate. You move in harmony with that unseen order which always knows the perfect moment. May is that moment for the millionaire seed. A month when the soil is warm enough to awaken its inner design, yet early enough to allow a full summer's harvest. And so you dig, but you dig with reverence, not routine. You make space, not just in the ground, but in your thinking. You lay the seed down gently as one places a dream into motion. And once it's in the ground, you cover it with belief. You do not dig it up each day to check its progress. You trust the process that works below the surface. The truth is, all growth happens in the unseen first. Long before the sprout reaches for the sky, the roots take hold in the darkness. The seed dies to what it was to become what it must be. And if that is not faith, what is? You must act with this same knowing. Once you plant, you water daily, not in doubt, but in expectation. You speak to your garden as if it hears, because it does. Life responds to the vibration of attention, and what you attend to with love flourishes. But let no weeds grow in your mind, for even the most well-planted seed can be strangled by fear. Fear is the drought, doubt is the disease. When you say, I don't see anything yet, you are judging by appearances, and that is the surest way to kill what is already working for you beneath the surface. Instead, water your mind with assurance. When the hot days of waiting arrive, when nothing seems to be happening, you must persist. You must return each morning to the garden with the joy of one who knows, my harvest is inevitable. You do not ask how, you trust that the law of growth is eternal, It cannot fail unless you refuse to believe. Understand that the seed has no fear. It never says, I hope I can become what I'm meant to be. It simply yields to the process. Its blueprint is written into its very core. And so is yours. The law is simple. Plant with belief, nurture with consistency, and live from the end. Let each action, whether watering, weeding, or waiting, be done with the confidence of harvest already won. Speak not of delay, but of the perfect unfolding. Let your garden hear no complaints, only faith. And by the time summer arrives, you will walk among the very thing you once held between your fingers. Small, dry, unimpressive. But now it stands tall, vibrant, abundant. You will not even remember the waiting, only the knowing. That is the power of planting, not just in the garden, but in the mind, in the soul, in every intention you dare to water with belief. There is something mysterious and sacred about the act of watching something grow, not merely because it changes form, but because it reveals to us a law that governs all life. What is nurtured in faith must express itself in form. The growing of millionaire seeds from May to summer is not just a matter of gardening, it is a classroom, and the subject is manifestation. From the moment you place the seed beneath the surface of the soil, a shift begins. Not outside, where the world can see it, but deep within, where only trust resides. Nothing appears to change on the first day, not even on the second. To the casual observer, there may be no sign of life for days. But for the one who understands, this silence is not emptiness. It is the sound of construction. The seed is responding to the environment, to the warmth, to the water, and most importantly, to your unwavering expectation, because the seed is already complete in its potential. You are not making it grow, you are simply giving it the conditions in which its own truth can unfold. To grow anything, whether a plant, a dream, or a transformation, you must begin by believing that it already is. The moment you think of growth as something yet to come, you remove yourself from the power of now. The seed, even when unseen, is active. It is alive. And the soil never questions its purpose. So neither must you. May offers the perfect balance of warmth and moisture. It is not too harsh, not too soft. In the same way, your inner state must be fertile but steady, not frantic with impatience, not cold with disbelief. You must tend to your soil, both the literal soil and the soil of your imagination, with care and consistency. Speak life over your garden. Walk among the rows as though they are already filled. This is how nature was designed. It answers to conviction, not to hope. Each day, as you rise and water your seeds, do not merely perform a task. Feel what it is you are creating. Live in the state of the harvest before it is visible. The most powerful gardeners are not those who labor with effort, but those who move in quiet certainty. They know the outcome is assured, not because they force it, but because they understand the process is already set into motion. They have aligned with it, and now they follow its rhythm without resistance. Watch closely and you will notice something strange. The tiniest shift in soil, the first green break through the earth. It appears suddenly, but it was not sudden. The change had been building for days unseen. This is how all growth works. You may think nothing is happening, and then one morning everything is different. But only to the eyes. The eyes are late to the truth. It is the inner vision, the one that never doubted, that it was always on time. Care for the growing plant without fear. Do not look to the sky and wonder whether it will rain enough. Do not speak of insects as though they carry more power than your intention. Act as the one who governs the environment through attention, not anxiety. A plant grows toward the light, not because it fears the darkness, but because it knows what it is. In the same way, your purpose and your growth are not reactions to lack. They are expressions of what is already designed to be. When leaves begin to form, do not marvel at them as if they are separate from the seed you once planted. They are the seed, but they are the seed fulfilled. All things evolve into form through stages, but the truth of their being is always present. The millionaire plant you will harvest in summer is already hidden in the May seed. The entire blueprint, the entire outcome is encoded within it. So when you plant, you are not beginning something. You are releasing it. You are making room for what already exists in potential to rise into view. To grow something well, you must give it room, space to stretch, light to reach toward, and time without pressure. Nothing beautiful grows through force. You must learn to let the soil do its part. You do not stretch the roots yourself. You do not pry open the leaves. You simply create the right conditions, and then you trust. Trust is the atmosphere of growth. Doubt suffocates, but belief breathes life. And if something slows, if days pass with no sign, if weather shifts, if discouragement whispers in your mind, remember this: nature does not operate on your schedule, but it never fails to deliver when the conditions are right. So your role is not to demand the harvest, but to maintain the environment of its inevitability. Keep showing up, keep speaking life, keep watering, not just the soil, but your expectation. By the time summer reaches its fullness, the transformation will be obvious. The garden will look nothing like it did in May. The space that once held invisible seeds will now stand tall with green abundance. But this moment is not a surprise. It is the result of every quiet act of trust. Every day you chose not to doubt. Every time you watered with conviction instead of concern. This is the reward of alignment, not effort. In growing millionaire seeds for a summer harvest, you are not just learning how to garden. You are learning how to create. You are practicing the ancient law that what is assumed as true becomes visible. You are discovering that growth does not come from seeing, but from believing. Every act you take in this life, no matter how simple, holds the seed of something far greater. When you bend down to the soil to plant a seed, you are not simply engaging in agriculture, you are aligning yourself with the divine rhythm of life. And if you understand that rhythm, if you honor it, then even the tiniest of actions becomes a sacred ritual. The planting of millionaire seeds is no exception. It is not just a seasonal task. It is a ceremony of creation. They have read instructions on packets, listened to advice from others, but none of it will matter unless you plant with awareness, with intention, with full acceptance that what you do now sets in motion what will come later. A seed may be small, but the moment it touches earth, it begins the invisible process of becoming something far larger than itself, and your awareness of that process, your attention to it, is the first key. Before you ever place the seed in soil, you must first prepare the ground. But this preparation is not only physical, it is mental. Just as you remove rocks, break clumps, and enrich the soil with compost, so too must you remove from your mind the hardened thoughts of doubt, the clumps of disbelief, the stale ideas that say, maybe it will grow, or let's wait and see. No, that is not the mindset of the planter who understands the ground must be loose, and so must your thinking. Loose enough to let the new idea take root without resistance. You cannot force growth through worry. You must soften your inner soil through quiet confidence. As you handle the millionaire seed, a variety often grown for its thick fruit and generous harvest, remember that your touch transfers not only warmth, but intention. You are not simply placing something into the dirt. You are giving it permission to live. You are saying, I trust that what you are will come forth. So plant gently, with care. Place the seed no more than half an inch deep, giving it room to rise, but also shelter from harsh elements. This is not burying, this is nurturing. Spacing matters. Do not crowd the seeds in your urgency to see more. Growth needs space just as thoughts need silence. A garden planted in haste becomes a tangle. So it is with your inner world. Make room. Respect timing. Let each seed breathe. 12 to 18 inches apart This is not just a guideline for plants, it is the lesson in trust. Trust that you don't need to overdo it. Trust that one seed, well placed, will yield more than dozens thrown without thought. The timing of planting, May, is not chosen at random. Nature whispers when the conditions are aligned. The soil is warm, the days are growing longer, and the air is rich with renewal. If you try to rush and plant too early, the seed shivers and withholds its strength. Plant too late, and the heat of summer may rush it into struggle. The right moment is known by its feeling, by the inner clarity that says, now. And so it is with every goal, every transformation. You must be tuned inward enough to feel when the moment is ripe, when the soil of your life is ready. Once planted, do not abandon the seed. Water it, not with anxious eyes, but with faithful hands. Moisture is essential, especially in the early days. Keep the soil damp, but never soaked. Too much water can rot the promise before it begins. Too little, and the seed must struggle unnecessarily. So learn balance. Let your care be consistent, not panicked. Show up each morning, not because you're desperate for results, but because you enjoy the process, because you believe the result is already on its way. Sunlight is its own nourishment. Millionaire seeds thrive under full sun, not partial belief, not occasional effort, full unfiltered conviction. Let the plant reach upward. Do not shade it with your worries. Do not hover over it with fear. Let the warmth of your certainty draw it out. Every living thing reaches toward light. The moment you withhold the light of your trust, you weaken its pull toward expression. Watch for the first signs of life, the small green sprout breaking the earth's surface. But do not be surprised. You are not a bystander to this event. You are its cause. You have agreed with life, and now life agrees with you. Rejoice, but not in disbelief. Rejoice as a mother seeing the child she already knew was growing within her. This moment is not an accident. It is the natural result of planted purpose. As the plant grows, continue to guide it. Stake it if needed. Protect it from pests, not through panic, but through preparation. The gardener who fears every insect has forgotten that the plant too has intelligence. The plant knows how to survive. It knows how to expand. Your job is not to fight everything that threatens it. Your job is to maintain the environment where strength can rise. Keep the area clean, remove weeds gently, and always return to that deep knowing. This plant will produce. Speak to your garden. Yes, speak aloud. Let your words bless what you've planted. Say, you are growing strong. You are full of life. You will bear fruit in your season. And feel those words as you say them. Feel them, not as commands, but as confirmations. The plant hears you because it lives in the same vibrational field that thought travels through. It is not separate from you. You are co-creating with the very fabric of existence. In all these planting tips, the greatest one is this. Tend your seed as though the harvest is already guaranteed. Do not ask if, ask when. Let every motion reflect that outcome is certain. Let every care be a joy. For what you plant with love grows with power, and what you believe without wavering must become your visible experience. There is a perfect time for every act under the heavens, a moment when all things are aligned, when the invisible gears of nature turn smoothly, inviting you to act in harmony with them. When you recognize that moment and move with it, what you touch begins to unfold with ease. You do not struggle for results, because the season itself supports you. This is the mystery behind timing, not just the calendar date, but the spiritual readiness that surrounds it. Planting millionaire seeds is not a random act of putting something in the ground. It is a partnership with the rhythm of life itself. The best time to plant is not chosen because a chart told you so. It is chosen because all elements, the warmth of the soil, the length of the day, the moisture in the air, come together as if saying, now. And just as nature gives you signals for the earth, your inner world gives you signals for everything you wish to create. May is not just a month on the calendar. It is a portal, a doorway. It is the passage between the last breath of spring and the first fullness of summer. The air carries a different energy, the sun more mature, the earth awake and eager. And the seed feels it. It listens. It waits through the cold months, dormant but aware, until the soil becomes soft and the light shifts. Then it knows, and in that knowing, it begins. But the seed can only respond to the environment it's placed in. If you plant too early, the cold clutches it, and it clings to itself for survival. If you plant too late, the heat rushes it, and it struggles to keep pace. So it is not just about doing, it is about doing in alignment. When you plant in May, you are not rushing, and you are not lagging, you are flowing. The same applies to everything you intend to bring forth in life. There is a time for preparation, and there is a time for planting. Many try to sow seeds of desire before they have prepared the inner ground. They act out of urgency, not faith, and so their actions do not take root. The ground must be warm, the inner climate must be ready. Only then will the seed begin its silent journey toward the surface. You can read the signs, you can feel them. The days are longer, the soil breathes warmth when you press your hand into it. Rain no longer threatens frost, but nourishes instead. These are not coincidences, they are cues. And just as the farmer listens for them, so must you listen for the cues within your own life. Because timing is not just about when the world is ready, it is about when you are ready. Planting at the right time means you no longer act out of doubt. You act out of certainty. There is a difference between trying and allowing. Trying says, maybe this will work. Allowing says, it is already done, and I am simply aligning with its unfolding. May is the season of allowing. It is the time when nature already wants what you want, and so, instead of forcing results, you simply agree with them. There is a stillness you must have before planting, a stillness that listens, not with your ears, but with your being. That stillness will always reveal the right moment. In that moment, the act of placing a seed into soil becomes more than technique. It becomes a declaration that says, I am ready. The earth is ready. The process is in motion. When you plant at the best time, everything feels natural. The soil opens, the moisture holds, the sun warms without scorching. You feel it in your body, a quiet confidence, a lack of urgency. You do not feel rushed to see results. You do not question whether it will grow. You know it will, because the planting was done not in fear but in harmony. And even after planting, that harmony continues. You water in rhythm, you tend in rhythm. You are no longer wrestling against time, but flowing with it. And that is why your garden thrives, not because of special knowledge, but because of alignment. You must become like the seed, patient, responsive, and willing to act when the moment is right, not before, not after. The seed does not complain that winter was long. It does not fear the future. It simply waits for warmth. And when warmth arrives, it moves, quietly, powerfully. And so you too must listen for warmth, that inner signal that says, now is the time. When that signal comes, do not hesitate. Do not second guess. Do not look to others for confirmation. The season is not asking the world's permission to bloom, and neither should you. When you feel the time is right, act. Plant the seed. Begin the process, not because you are desperate to see change, but because you know the change has already begun within. In May, the air is not only warmer, it is richer, more alive, filled with unseen movement. The energy of growth surrounds you, and the moment you plant, you become part of it. You do not work against nature, you become nature in motion. That is why what you plant in this season flourishes, because you are not imposing change, you are becoming the channel through which change flows. There is a reason ancient wisdom always speaks of seasons, not just weather, but moments of readiness, When the body, the mind, and the world align, the seed has no choice but to grow. The same is true of every desire you hold. Do not rush the process, but do not delay it either. The best time to plant is not a guess, it is a knowing. And that knowing comes when you are no longer separate from the process, but one with it. When the time is right, it will feel like returning, like remembering something you already knew. There will be no effort in your step, no doubt in your hand. You will plant as if the harvest is guaranteed, because it is. When the sun reaches its strength and the earth hums with life, a different kind of knowing rises within you. Summer is not the beginning. It is not the start of something new. It is the revelation of what was already planted, the unveiling of what was already set in motion months before. In the realm of gardening and in life, summer is the mirror of spring's assumptions. What was believed in silence, cared for in patience, now emerges into the visible world. To stand in a summer garden is to witness your inner world in bloom. The plants, the growth, the fullness, none of it is new. It is only new to the eye. The process was always happening, always becoming. When you walk among your millionaire plants in July or August, understand that every leaf, every fruit is simply a response to the consciousness with which you planted. Summer vegetable gardening is a lesson in faith made manifest. You cannot begin in summer. The seed will not wait for your delay. It needed to be planted when there was no proof. It needed your care when nothing yet showed. The one who waits until summer to believe will miss the harvest entirely. But the one who believed in May, who watered in June, who weeded with trust, now stands among abundance, not as a surprise, but as an inevitability. The millionaire variety is generous. It does not offer modest growth. It gives with power, with fullness, but only to the gardener who matches its nature. You must meet the seed with your own version of generosity, not through overdoing, but through presence. You cannot rush this plant. You cannot demand from it what you did not nourish. The one who expects something from nothing will always be disappointed. But the one who understands that everything visible was once invisible, that growth is not created but allowed, that one becomes master of the garden. Summer teaches you to let go of worry and become a watcher, not passive, attentive. You observe what now reveals itself. You harvest with joy. You see what each seed has become. But the most important truth remains hidden to many. What you see is not the reward for labor, but the result of consciousness. It is not the hours you worked that caused the fruit. It is the quality of belief you held while working. You can toil endlessly in the outer world, but if you sowed in doubt, you will reap the same. But one who moves with quiet knowing, who plants in inner peace, that one will reap more than he seemed to sow. In this season, the sun does much of the work. You need not force growth. You do not speak to your plants in panic. You do not pull at their stems to make them taller. You simply continue to show up with water, with attention, with care. The rhythm has already begun. You are now part of it. You tend your garden not out of fear, but out of love. This is what true gardening is, a relationship with life. Each day in the garden becomes a meditation. As the millionaire plant grows, you see its needs clearly. A slight yellowing of the leaves, a lean toward the sun, these are not problems. These are communications. The plant is not failing, it is speaking. And you, the attentive gardener, listen without fear. You adjust, you respond. Not with worry, but with wisdom. Pests may appear, weather may shift, but you do not collapse into reaction. You do not declare that your harvest is ruined. You remember the principle, what is assumed as true becomes true. So you assume the health of your plant. You assume the fruit is already growing. And then with action that flows from belief, not from desperation, you protect, you support, you provide. You never lose your inner state of certainty because you know nothing can threaten what you have fully accepted within. The soil still matters in summer. Just because the seed is now a plant does not mean you abandon the roots. The roots must still be nourished. Mulch, moisture, air, all of these continue to play a role. Likewise, your inner life must remain active. You do not stop imagining simply because you've seen results. You continue to nourish your vision, to speak life over your work, to remain aligned with the outcome. You live in the harvest even while the fruit is still ripening. And what of the fruit? When it appears, heavy, rich, full, you do not ask where it came from, you know where. You remember the tiny seed, the morning watering, the silent days when nothing seemed to move, and now you hold in your hands the evidence of unseen law, a law that never failed you, a law that answered not your words, but your state. You harvest not only vegetables, you harvest faith. Even in summer, there is more to be done. You prune, you clean, you prepare for the next cycle. Because you know this, the garden never ends. There is always a next step, always a new seed. And what you learn in one season becomes the wisdom of the next. So you remain humble but certain, open but rooted. You have seen the law in motion, you have lived the teaching. If the blessing of your garden be a reflection of the fullness of your belief, let each leaf and fruit remind you that nothing is too small to become great, that what is nurtured without seeing will always one day be seen, that what begins in silence ends in abundance. This is summer's gift, not merely food, but proof. The moment you ask how long something takes to grow, you reveal something hidden, that you are still watching time, still measuring progress by appearances. But the law of life does not operate on visible clocks. It answers to assumption, to sustained belief, to that quiet inner conviction that says, it is done, long before your senses can agree. You hold a millionaire seed in your hand and you ask, when will it grow? But growth does not begin the day the leaf breaks the soil. Growth begins the instant the seed touches earth and you no longer doubt it. It begins in silence, in darkness, in depths unseen. To demand visible results too soon is to miss the miracle already in motion. On average, you will hear that millionaire seeds take 7 to 14 days to germinate, that you may expect first fruit in 65 to 75 days. These are numbers, guides, approximations, useful for the gardener of the outer world. But the gardener of the inner world does not rely solely on numbers. They understand that true growth begins the moment belief is planted. And the moment belief is sustained, manifestation becomes a certainty. There are those who plant and wait with impatience. They check the soil each morning as if they do not trust the process. They speak to others about whether it will work. They seek signs, not from faith, but from fear. And they delay the harvest not because the soil is unwilling, but because the mind is divided. A divided mind cannot bring forth full fruit. It is not the time that is the issue. It is the trust. Once the seed is in the soil, you must act as if it has already become what it is destined to be. You water it, not to force growth, but to honor what is growing. You tend to it with the certainty of someone who knows. Beneath the surface, life has already responded. The seed has received the signal. It has begun to unfold according to its design. Just because your eyes do not see movement does not mean nothing is moving. The most critical growth is always invisible. Think of the process. The seed draws in moisture. It softens. The shell breaks. The root pushes downward. The sprout reaches upward. All of this happens long before the soil parts and allows light to touch green. The delay is not a failure. It is a preparation. Every day that passes without visible change is a day of silent shaping. When the shoot finally appears, it is not the beginning of growth. It is the result of everything that was already occurring. So when you ask how long it will take, you must ask a better question. How long can I remain faithful to the vision of what I planted, even when I cannot yet see it? That is the true measure, because your assumption, your inner knowing, is the environment that either hastens or hinders the manifestation. There are gardeners who seem to bring forth fruit faster than others. Their secret is not in tools or soil. Their secret is that they do not contradict what they believe. They do not speak words of doubt. They do not say, I hope this works. They say it is working now. And their harvest responds to that confidence. The seed listens, not just to the weather or the soil, but to the vibration of the one who planted it. If you believe in struggle, the seed reflects struggle. If you believe in delay, the seed slows. But if you believe in perfect timing, in ease, in inevitable growth, then the plant will match that belief. All of life is an echo of your own inner state. Once planted, you must cease looking for signs of failure. You must stop asking if it's happening. You must live as though it is already done. Go about your days preparing for the harvest. Imagine yourself walking among full plants. Feel the joy of cooking what you've grown. Smell the fragrance of green abundance. Engage all your senses as if it were already true, because in truth it is. The timeline then is determined not only by temperature or climate, but by your mental persistence. When your imagination no longer wavers, when you no longer rehearse defeat in your mind, when you stop adjusting your expectations out of fear, that is when you align fully with growth. And what you are aligned with must appear. Do not become discouraged if it takes longer than expected. Time is never your enemy. Delay is not denial, it is refinement. Every extra day in the dark strengthens the roots. Every moment unseen is a moment of deepening. You may not see the shape of what is forming, but you can feel its inevitability, and that feeling must be honored above all. If you truly knew the seed would grow, would you worry? If you truly believed the fruit would arrive, would you pace the garden in frustration? No. You would smile at the empty bed, knowing that soon it will not be empty. You would speak to the soil with confidence. You would act, think, and feel as though the thing were already done.
Is the key to growth, not in force, but in faith. You do not make the seed grow, you simply allow it. You provide the right conditions outwardly, light, warmth, moisture, and the right conditions inwardly, peace, patience, certainty. And then you let the law of life carry out what it was always going to do. How long does it take? As long as you need to believe without needing to see. As long as it takes to stay loyal to your vision while the roots take hold in silence. As long as it takes for you to surrender the clock and dwell in the state of already having. When that shift occurs, when time becomes irrelevant and trust becomes real, the seed will respond and it will grow, and one day soon it will rise above the soil and show you what was always true. It had been growing all along.
Before you ever plant a seed, you must prepare the ground, not because the seed is weak, but because the environment into which it is planted will determine its expression. Soil is not just a substance beneath your feet. It is a symbol of consciousness. It is the medium through which potential becomes visible. And if you do not prepare it with care, no amount of watering, waiting, or willing can compensate. The preparation of soil is not simply the turning over of dirt. It is a sacred act of alignment. It is you saying to life, I am ready to receive. And that readiness must not be rushed. For just as a mind filled with resistance cannot birth a vision, so too a ground filled with hardness, rocks, and weeds cannot bring forth life. The soil must be open. It must be responsive. It must be surrendered. Begin by observing. Look at your soil, not just with your eyes, but with awareness. Is it compacted, dry, unresponsive? then it must be loosened. There must be movement. You break the ground so air can enter, so water can move freely, so roots can find their way. And in the same way, you must break through the rigid thoughts, the stale routines, the unconscious beliefs that keep your own life hard-packed and closed. A closed mind cannot grow a new result. It must be tilled, stirred, brought back to breath. Remove the rocks. These are the hardened judgments, the I can't, the this never works for me, the it's always been this way. These stones do not belong in the new field you are preparing. They are memories of failure, inherited limitations, old fears passed down through generations. They must be lifted out of the soil of your mind. And it is your job, not the world's, not another person's, to remove them one by one, thought by thought, until the ground is clear enough to receive the new. Then come the weeds, more subtle, more deceptive. Weeds are not hard like rocks. They move with the wind, they blend in, they seem harmless, but they steal the nutrients, they wrap themselves around the root of truth and choke it. Weeds are distractions, doubts, false priorities, comparing yourself to others, chasing things that pull you away from the original vision. They don't always look dangerous, but they dilute your focus. And so they must be pulled, not once, but continually, because the moment you let them grow unchecked, they will dominate the field. Once the soil is free of obstruction, it must be nourished, enriched. Life will not flow through an empty vessel. You must give the soil what it needs to support transformation. Compost, organic matter, minerals, these are not random ingredients, they are life returning to life. The old becomes the foundation for the new. And so it is within you. Every past experience, every former disappointment, when understood correctly, becomes food to your future. Nothing is wasted when you learn from it. Mix that nourishment in, blend it, let it become part of the ground. The soil must be balanced, not too sandy, not too dense. It must hold water, but drain as well. Too much retention and the roots drown. Too much release and they dry out. And just the same, your inner state must be balanced, not grasping, not forcing, not withholding. You must be open and yet detached, present yet trusting, giving without fear of loss. The balance of soil is the balance of spirit. Once your soil is ready, you feel it, not only in your hands, but in your being. There is a sense of openness, of softness, of receptivity. It no longer resists the seed, it welcomes it. And when the seed touches that soil, something begins. A relationship is formed. Life recognizes life. The potential in the seed responds to the invitation of the ground, and what was once dormant now begins to awaken. You water, not to beg for growth, but to affirm it. You tend not to control the process, but to support it, because the real work was already done before the seed was ever planted. It was in the preparation. Just as every manifestation, every new chapter, every change in life does not come from what you do in the moment of action, but what you've cultivated beforehand in silence. If you skip the soil preparation, you may still plant, but the growth will be weak. The roots will struggle. The plant may emerge, but it will fight to survive. And so will your visions if you do not first clear the ground of your being. You cannot build a future on the fragments of an unexamined past. You cannot receive something new while clinging to what no longer serves you. The gardener who understands this prepares the soil as the most important part of the process. They do not rush it. They do not call it boring. They know that without it, all else is futile. And in the same way, the wise person does not rush into action before preparing the self. They clear their doubts, they rewrite their assumptions, they uproot what no longer belongs in their field, and when they finally plant, whether it is a seed, a word, an idea, the result is certain. You prepare your soil each time you quiet the mind, each time you release what no longer aligns, each time you speak to your inner world with intention. It is a practice, a discipline, a form of love. And when you give this care to your garden, the garden gives back. Life does not withhold, it responds, it mirrors. And when the ground is ready, the harvest is inevitable. There is a moment when the earth feels ready, not according to the calendar alone, not according to charts or the timing of others, but according to something far more subtle and sacred, a knowing. That knowing is not found in noise, it does not shout, it whispers. And only those who are still enough to listen can hear it. You stand with a packet of Millionaire seeds in your hand and the question arises, when should I plant? And this is not merely a question of climate, it is a question of alignment. Because the seed does not grow on command, it grows in response to the readiness of the soil, the warmth of the air, the length of the day, and most of all, the belief of the one who plants it. There is a time to wait, and there is a time to act. A seed planted too early lies dormant, cold and hesitant beneath the surface, unsure if it is safe to break open. A seed planted too late rushes to catch up with the season, forced to grow not with strength, but with urgency. But a seed planted at the right time enters a field of ease. It does not struggle, it unfolds. And so do you when you move in rhythm with the truth of your moment. To plant at the right time means you have attuned yourself to the invisible season, not just the outer one, but the inner one, the season within you, the one that no one else can measure. You know it not because the forecast says so, but because something inside you becomes still, peaceful, receptive. No more second guessing, no more questioning whether you're ready. There is only doing, and doing with quiet certainty. That is how the soil knows. That is how the seed knows. That is how you must know. May is often the answer when it comes to Millionaire seeds. The soil has warmed, the cold thread of frost has passed, and the sun begins to stretch its arms longer across the sky. But the date itself is not the power. The conditions are. And more than outer conditions, it is your inner alignment that matters most. If you plant in fear, even in May, the ground may mirror that fear. But if you plant in faith, in calm expectation, the season will respond accordingly. There is no benefit in planting from desperation. You must not force the seed into the ground because you are impatient for results. You must not bury it because you feel behind. The moment is not chosen by pressure. It is revealed by stillness. And that stillness only comes when you've cleared the mind of urgency and entered into the feeling of trust. You must learn to read the signs not only around you, but within you. Has the soil of your being been tilled? Have the doubts been lifted like rocks from the ground? Have the limiting beliefs been pulled like weeds from the root? Has the climate of your heart warmed enough to welcome something new without resistance? If so, you are ready. If not, wait. Prepare more. Reflect. Align. Because planting is not about motion, it is about intention. And when the moment comes, it will not feel dramatic. It will not arrive with fireworks or demand your attention. It will be quiet, certain, like an inner nod, a yes that echoes without sound. You will find yourself not asking, but doing, and the act will feel natural, like a return, not a leap. That is how you know it's time, when action feels like remembrance. Once you place the seed into the soil at that moment, you have already done most of the work. The energy has already been transferred. The command has already been given. You do not plant and then begin to hope. You plant because you have already seen it, seen the growth, seen the fruit, seen the harvest. And now you are simply aligning the outer act with the inner vision. To the world, it looks like you're just putting something small into the dirt, but to you, it is far more than that. It is a declaration, a decision, a sacred agreement between you and the laws of life. You are saying, now is the time. I no longer live in the preparation, I live in the beginning. And once that statement is made, life moves with you. There is no fear in the rightly timed planting. No need to check constantly, to second guess, to compare your garden to another's. You understand that each planting happens in its own divine order. The timing of your seed was perfect for you, and that is all that matters. You do not compete, you do not rush, you do not envy another's growth. You understand that the power is in the precision of the moment, not the speed of the process. Even after planting, you remain connected to that original timing. You remember why you planted when you did. So when the rains come, you do not panic. When the wind blows, you do not retreat. You do not question the decision. You stand firm in your knowing. You say, this seed was planted in truth. Its season is sure. And that knowing sustains the growth, even when the growth is not yet visible. Because growth is not loud, it is silent, timeless, rooted in the unseen. And everything you will one day see in your garden, every leaf, every fruit, every branch, it all begins with a moment of alignment. A moment when the inner and outer worlds agree. A moment that looks small, but is vast in power. So when you ask when to plant, listen not just to the soil, but to yourself. Let the moment find you. Let it rise from within you, like the first warmth of spring. And when it does, act without hesitation. Trust the whisper. And know that everything placed in the ground in that energy is destined to rise. As you reflect on the journey of planting millionaire seeds, both in the garden and within your own life, you begin to understand that it is not the outer conditions alone that dictate success. The power is always within you, in the way you prepare, the way you trust, and the way you remain steady through all seasons. Just as a seed must first be nourished in unseen darkness before it rises to the light, so too must your dreams, desires, and intentions grow beneath the surface of your conscious awareness before they ever manifest into the physical world. Each step in this process, from soil preparation to planting, from nurturing to harvesting, is a reflection of a deeper law that governs not only gardens, but all creation. It is the law of belief, of assumption, of living in the end. When you plant with faith and act in alignment with your vision, the universe has no choice but to reflect that belief in tangible form. Patience is not about waiting passively, but about maintaining your state of knowing, your unwavering certainty that what you have planted will grow. Just as the gardener knows the plant will break through the soil when the time is right, so must you trust that your efforts, no matter how invisible they may seem at times, are steadily bringing you closer to the harvest you desire. The real magic lies in the quiet moments of alignment, the times when you listen, trust, and remain faithful to the unseen process of growth. And when your harvest arrives, whether it's the bounty of your garden or the fulfillment of your deepest desires, you will know that the time of planting was perfect, the conditions were right, and the belief in your heart was the true force behind it all. So, plant with confidence, nurture with care, and trust in the silent, powerful forces of creation that are always at work, unseen but ever present. Your harvest is inevitable.